Now that I've got your attention, let's make some bread. Hello and welcome to Big Friendly Grub. I hope you're well, you wonderful, beautiful, spectacular people. Now, if you've been watching since the beginning of my channel, first of all, thank you. Second of all, what's wrong with you? And thirdly, you may have seen that my very first recipe video was how to make a traditional tin loaf, because that's one of the things that people get most scared about in the kitchen when it comes to baking. It is bread, because they say, oh, I can't bake bread. It's too hard, it takes too long, blah, 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 blah. All those things I've heard a million times before, and I don't think that's true. It can be tricky, but once you get it down, it is one of the best things in the world. I did a really in-depth video on how to make a traditional tin loaf, so you can go back and watch that if you want to attempt that. I go into great detail about it, and hopefully you will find it useful. But if that is still too intimidating for you, if you don't want to worry about all that kneading and stuff like that, then have I got the recipe for you? It is no-knead beer bread. All you need is flour, yeast, salt, and as I mentioned before, beer. I am using a non-alcoholic ghost ship, but it doesn't matter that it hasn't got alcohol in it. All you need is the beer, because it's got yeast in it already. That gives it a little bit of extra lift, but it also gives it fantastic flavour. And the great thing about beer bread is it takes on the flavours of the beer that you use. So this is quite a light beer, light in colour, should be quite fresh and maybe some citrusy notes and things like that. But you could use like a dark porter or a stout or anything like that. It's really up to you. That's right, we're going to use beer, and there's going to be none of that pesky kneading. It is going to take a little while, but there's no effort, and all the time is spent basically letting it do its thing. You don't need to do anything. You can go off and sleep. That's what I'm going to do once I've done this first part of the video. You don't need to do anything else. In fact, I'm probably going to be talking longer now than it will probably take to do the rest of the video. So I'm going to shut up, but we're going to use some beer to make some no-knead beer bread, and it's going to be fantastic. Let's get started. Right, for our bread, we need a bowl, and into that bowl, we're going to put in 500 grams of strong bread flour. I'm using 500 grams of white strong bread flour, but you could do a mix of like 300 grams white, 200 grams wholemeal, or something like that. You can mix and match, but I'm just using white this time. And then we want 5 grams of yeast on one side of the bowl, 7 grams of sea salt on the other side of the bowl. Make sure it's fine, not coarse. Keep those away from each other because the salt can impact the rise of the yeast. And then we want roughly 300 millilitres of beer. I'm going to put in probably about half of it at first. You don't need a stand mixer or anything like that. You can use your hands, or like I'm using here, a dough scraper, just to bring it all together a little bit at a time. I like to do it a bit at a time, because sometimes you don't always need all your liquid, or sometimes you need a little bit more. It really does depend on the flour sometimes, and also the humidity in the air. I think we will need all of that, maybe a little bit more. Get this off of here, I'm going to do the fun bit, get stuck in with my hands. That's still looking a little bit dry, so I'm going to just add in a splash more beer. That's looking better, it's looking tacky, it's cleaning off the flour from the bowl. It's more like it. There we go, that's better. It's brought it into a sticky, but not so sticky I can't get it off my hands or out of the bowl sticky. So that looks about right. Now usually this is the part where we would start kneading this, but there's no need, because it's no need. All I'm going to do is pop over a clean yet damp tea towel over the top of that. Then just over the top of that, I'm just putting some cling film just to kind of seal in some of the air and not let it like dry out too much. The wonderful thing about this loaf is if you do want bread, you know you're going to need bread like say tomorrow, but you don't want to go through the whole hassle of doing a kneaded bread, or want to go out and buy some bread. If you've got all the things that we've put into here, you can simply do this the night before and then finish it off in the morning. Now I need to leave this for around about 8 hours, could even be as much as 24 hours, but I would say a minimum of 8 hours, so that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to head off to bed very soon, and we can come back tomorrow to see how this is done. Well, I can come back tomorrow, you can come back in a moment. And voila! It's the next day. It's actually probably about, I would say it's probably about 12 hours later now. I left it a little bit longer than 8 hours just because I had other things to do. So I've left this for 12 hours. As you can see, it's risen up in the bowl. So I'm going to get in here with some flour just to stop this from sticking. And unlike most doughs, I don't want to knock too much of the air out of this. And all I'm going to do with this, get a bit more flour down and just shape it nicely into a loaf shape. Just rock it and roll it around. You can go with whatever shape you like. You could go with a nice round loaf, or do what I'm doing here and try and get in and turn it into a kind of like a sausage shape. I'm just getting underneath this and pinching all the dough together just so it's nice and tight. The reason why we don't really need to knead this is because we've left it so long to prove overnight. It strengthens the gluten naturally anyway. So when we're kneading it, we're actually speeding up a process that does happen over time anyway. So we can just take our time, not rush, no stress, no bother. And I'm just taking my time shaping this just because it's a really nice dough, and to be honest, a nice dough is just one of the best feelings in the world. So you can see, but just by rocking and rolling that around, pinching the underneath, I've worked it into a really nice, like smooth, sausagey loaf shape. Get myself a tray, sprinkle down some semolina. That gives it like a nice crisp base and stops it from sticking to my baking sheet. Move that back onto there, just reshape, just to make sure it's not wonky. And I'm covering that over with a clean, dry tea towel, not a wet one like we used last night. And then I'm just going to leave that probably for at least an hour to prove and double in size, maybe a bit longer just because it is quite cold at the moment. So it needs a bit more time when it's colder to prove. Right, it's been about 90 minutes because it is quite chilly today. So I gave it a little bit of extra time to prove, and there we go. That has risen up quite nicely. That is a lovely shape. So we can get this into the oven, but first of all, I am going to dust it with some flour. You don't have to, of course, but I like to sometimes. Just gives it a nice look, nice finish. Then because we need somewhere to release the steam from it, I'm just going to make a slash down the middle. If you don't have one of those razors, you can just use a very sharp knife, just be careful. And I'm going to pop that into the oven at 200 degrees C for about 30 minutes. And you might be able to see here, I've got a loaf tin filled with water, which will create steam to make a really nice crust on my bread. So 30 minutes, see you then. Right, it has been about 30 minutes. Oh, there's a bit of steam coming out of there. And there we go, look at that. That is a lovely looking loaf. Got that lovely split down there. It's a really nice colour, it smells fantastic. And that is all through no kneading whatsoever. It takes a bit of time, but the end result is worth it. So I'm going to leave that to cool down for a bit, not too long, but there's something really lovely about warm bread, just butter in it, it's amazing. But I'm going to leave it to cool down for a bit because it's going to be really, really hot. But I'm really happy with how that's turned out. Looks lovely. There we go, one delicious looking loaf of no-knead beer bread. Absolutely minimal effort there. It just takes a little bit of time, but that's turned out really well. Hopefully the inside looks as good as the outside, but I'm really happy with that. It smells wonderful. There's nothing better than fresh bread. So I don't want to waste any time because I want to cut into this and see how it's come out, and I want to taste it. That is one tasty looking loaf of bread, but the proof is always in the eating, so I've got to cut into this bad boy. Oh, it's got a good crust on it, lovely crust. There we go. Got a really, look at that lovely texture. Really, really nice texture. Oh, it's got that, just the right bounce in it. It's come out really, really well. And you've got that all through, no kneading whatsoever. It's just a little bit of time, patience and care. But that is a really nice looking loaf of bread. So nothing else left to do but get some butter on this and to give it a taste. Here we are, all slathered in some lovely butter. So cheers. Is there anything better and more simple than homemade bread with some butter on it? It's just amazing. And that is a lovely loaf of bread. It's got a really nice texture, a lovely crust on it, and you've got some of that like light citrusy notes from the beer in it, and it just tastes fantastic. It's come out so well. It's so worth it. So if you are intimidated by making bread put off by kneading and stuff like that, this is a great way to start. So yeah, if someone's giving you like a beer that you're not too keen on or something like that, don't throw it away. Use it, try making some bread with it, because it's so worthwhile. It's a great entry into the world of making bread. So there we go. Hope you found that useful. If you do make that bread, let me know, because I'd love to see it. Send me a photo on Instagram or Twitter. I'm on there, Big Friendly Grub. But I hope you enjoyed that video. And if you did, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell to find out when new videos are released. But otherwise, take care. Now we'll see you next time on Big Friendly Grub. I'm off to go finish that bread because it's delicious. Bye! I've also got a loaf tin there which is just full of water to create stim. And I've also, oh, what the heck was that? Stim!